I had just finished teaching Introduction to American Politics to a group of eager undergraduates. This was my first year teaching, but I had pulled off a slammin' lecture, and I was feeling good about myself. As I left the classroom, I looked down at my phone and saw that I had 5 missed calls from my brother, Kenny. At the time, Kenny was a student at Temple University and living in North Philly. For those who don't know North Philly, it's an area that is predominantly black and low income with a very visible police presence. When I return his phone call, Kenny is loud and swearing into the phone. I can tell that something very bad happened, but I'm not sure what. When I am finally able to get him to calm down, he tells me how he was sitting on the stoop of his building talking to a friend when 4 police officers ran up on him and threw him and 3 others on the ground, handcuffed them, and then pushed them up against a wall, all the while asking them, "What drugs do you have? What drugs do you have?" Kenny had no drugs. He told the officers this many times, but each statement of no drugs only seemed to provoke more force and make the officers more upset. As Kenny sat cuffed and slumped against a brick wall, he quietly told the officers that he was a student at Temple University, and without reason, they could not hold him. The officers finally retrieved his college ID, which was in his wallet that had slipped out when he was slammed to the pavement, realized that he was indeed in college without drugs, and then let him go. After Kenny told me the story, he was still loud and upset. I was shaking, barely able to hold the phone to my ear. All of the joy from my great day of teaching gone, and replaced was a deep sense of helplessness and alarm. I wanted to remove the hurt and frustration that Kenny felt, that I could hear so clearly through the phone, but I neither had the will nor the ability to lie to him about the mightiness of American racism, and we both silently knew that this would not be the last time that he would be stopped and frisked by the police for drugs. Results. According to the most recent statistics, blacks are 3 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than whites. The question on everyone's mind, and the question that I get asked the most, is how do we solve this problem? But it's not just police that prop up this myth of black danger. This myth gets reinforced and takes on a truth-like quality through everyday interaction. When a black man passes and a woman clutches her purse, or when a group of black friends walk by a car and hear the jarring sound of someone who has just pushed their automatic locks because they are afraid. And I have friends on both sides of this, black men with great jobs who just want to be viewed as a person and not as a threat after a long day of work. And I have really great white and Asian women friends who clutch their purse and walk quickly if they see a black man on a dimly lit street, and then feel ashamed and a need to over-explain their actions to me. And I've also been on the receiving end of having who I was reduced to someone else's false perception of how much of a danger I posed. Last year, I was coming back from a trip, and I was singled out by the TSA agent. I thought that I had left a water bottle, like I often do, in my bag, but he ushered me to a separate area, and then 2 more TSA agents surrounded me, and I knew in my gut that something bad was about to go down. The lead TSA agent proceeds to accuse me of bringing a weapon into the airport. When I insisted that I did not bring a weapon into the airport, he produces a piece of costume jewelry, a double ring that I had picked up for $4 on vacation. It was like his gotcha moment, and it was my super confused moment. He then accuses me of bringing brass knuckles, a deadly weapon, into a United States airport. I was almost at a loss of words, which is rare for someone like me, but I politely pointed out to him that the ring was plastic, it wasn't brass, and these weren't knuckles, it was just a ring that went over 2 fingers instead of 1 finger. But have you ever talked to someone and felt like you didn't exist? Like when they spoke to you, they spoke right through you. Well, that's how I felt. He got more angry at my explanations, looked me in my face and said, "You people always lie. I know that this is a weapon, and I'm not going to let someone dangerous like you board a plane today." Well, I started to shake, right? Because we've all seen this movie about the brown girl who walks into the airport with a deadly weapon, and it never really ends well for her. It doesn't. It never does. So I had to do what I hate doing, and I used my credentials to get me out of a bad situation. I told him that I was a professor of constitutional law and American politics. Right? Like, yeah. So I told him I cited US Criminal Code, landmark Supreme Court decisions, and rules from the Homeland Security Rulebook because I also teach civil liberties. And then he started to get very nervous. He asked what school I worked at. I told him he Googled my name and the blood drained from his face, right? As he realized I wasn't making this up, I knew my rights and I was a college professor. And then when he looked back at me, he finally saw me, not as a dangerous threat, but as a person. After a few more minutes, he let me go to catch my much delayed flight. I found a seat in the airport terminal, still trembling with rage at the way that I had been treated. I was only seated for a few minutes when I felt a tap on my shoulder. A woman airport worker said that she saw my whole ordeal and that he does this all the time to black passengers, and I was lucky to have been released from his custody so quickly. But it shouldn't take a university website profile to be viewed as non-threatening, right?